But the bank war could be, it could be something monumental actually, because it's for the control of the money or the currency of the country. And as Meyer Amschel Rothschild said once in the 19th century, give me control of a country's currency and I care not who makes the laws. And I think that's what is at stake here. We'll have to wait and see whether Trump's for real and he wants to give the people back the control of the currency. Wednesday, January 29th, 2025, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So today we're going to look at whether President Trump is about to kick off the second bank war. And of course, we're going to look at the first bank war. We always like to look at history on this channel. It always helps us ascertain what's going on in the present and what might happen in the future. Before I start, though, I'd like to thank all of you for the interest you have in this channel. I couldn't be doing this without you, so thank you very much. So let's go straight to the second bank war and why I think we might be entering one. Well, today the Federal Reserve will decide whether it will change interest rates. Of course, President Trump wants them to cut rates. He said that the other day, that we should cut rates a lot more. The Financial Times is reporting Federal Reserve set to repel Donald Trump's calls for deep rate cuts. Economists warn that political meddling in monetary policy can often go very badly. Well, that's the excuse from the central bankers. And am I saying President Trump should influence the Fed? Well, maybe. I'm not a lover of central banks, as many of you know, and we're going to look at that today. And the reason why I think there might be a second bank war is because the Federal Reserve actually is an institution that was created by the bankers to help themselves. Yes, Jay Powell will go up there today at the press conference and say that they're doing everything to help the American people, the economy, but that's just for show. And at the end of the day, they're there to bail out the banks. They're there to privatize their profits, help them privatize profits, and socialize their losses. That's what they're why they were created. And I'm going to refer you to a couple of books today. The first one is Our Crowd by Stephen Birmingham. It's about the great Jewish families of New York. And right off the bat, it's not about religion or ethnicity here. It's about the facts that I'm talking about. So I don't have a gripe with any groups, really, ethnic or religious. I'm open to friendship with anyone as long as they're nice to me, right? So what's Our Crowd about? Well, it was recommended to me many years ago by Jim Sinclair, whose family was part of the crowd. His family really was, they were Seligmans. He changed his name when he was younger because I think he was bullied at school for being Jewish. And that was the reason he was called Jim Sinclair. But Jim Sinclair was one of the guys that I followed early on, over 20 years ago online. He had a blog, and he was known as Mr. Gold in the 70s bull market. And he told us to read this book. And I read it first, and then I read it again a few years ago. And I think I found the reason why he told us to read it. At least for me, it was like a eureka moment. And it's on page 40. And it says here, in the panic of 1837, Belmont was able to perform a service which he would repeat in subsequent panics, and which helped make him a friend to bankers and to the United States government. By negotiating loans from the Rothschilds, he was able to shore up the United States debtor banks. In other words, he was able, thanks to the hugeness of the Rothschild reservoir of capital, to start out in America operating his own Federal Reserve System. Well, this was back in 1837. And this year is important because it's 2 years after Andrew Jackson failed to renew the charter for the Second Bank of the United States. As you can see here, there's this cartoon, The Downfall of Mother Bank. It says, the bank, Andrew Jackson told Martin Van Buren, is trying to kill me, but I will kill it. That is just the unwavering force that Edward Clay depicted in his lithograph, which praised Jackson for terminating the Second Bank of the United States. Clay shows Nicholas Biddle as the devil running away from Jackson as the bank collapses around him, his hirelings and speculators. So, what else do we know about Andrew Jackson and the bank war? So, again, this was 1837. And what I found interesting about that passage is that Belmont, who was actually an agent for the Rothschilds, his August Belmont, that is, Belmont Stakes, if you're familiar with that, he was sent to the U.S. During the Panic of 1837 from Cuba. His real name was August Schonberg, and he used to work for the Rothschilds in Frankfurt, Germany. So yes, he was basically, a very close agent of the Rothschilds. And I think what this book is trying to say, they were acting like a Federal Reserve, but by the early 1900s, they were unwilling, I guess, to risk too much of their capital, because the United States was becoming bigger and bigger, the economy. So they needed to find a way, and that was the Federal Reserve. They needed to bring back the a central bank. It was called the Federal Reserve. So that's why I think that was important. That was a message, and that's who really runs the Federal Reserve. And I said earlier that the Federal Reserve helps the bankers privatize their profits and socialize their losses. So let's go over the Second Bank War. Well, Andrew Jackson stopped the Second Bank of the United States through a combination of political opposition, veto power, and financial maneuvers. His actions, often called the Bank War, results in the central bank's demise. So maybe if President Trump is watching this, it might give him a few ideas if he's fed up with the Federal Reserve. Well, number one was vetoing the bank's recharter in 1832. So the Second Bank of the United States, led by Nicholas Biddle, was set to have its charter expire in 1836. So in 1832, Congress passed a bill to renew the charter early, but Jackson vetoed it, calling the bank unconstitutional and a tool for the wealthy elite. There you go. Andrew Jackson, by the way, was the last president to pay off the national debt in 1835. And yes, Trump has talked about obliterating the national debt. Maybe that's a hint. His veto resonated with many Americans who distrusted banks and financial elites. It sounds familiar. What else did he do? Well, he won the election of 1832, and Jackson made opposition to the bank a key issue in his re-election campaign against Henry Clay. And his victory gave him a strong mandate to dismantle the bank. So the other thing he did that's really interesting, he removed the Treasury's deposits from the bank. So that's a clue for President Trump. Where would they put their deposits? Well, they could just open a Treasury depository, a Treasury bank maybe. Two secretaries of the Treasury refused to comply and were fired until Jackson found one, Roger B. Taney, who carried out his orders. And we know that President Trump will have no, he'll have no one really challenge him. We've seen what he's done with Colombia, right? The country. So this is very interesting. It's something I could see President Trump doing. So the bank's demise. Well, without federal deposits, the bank lost much of its power and influence. It tried to retaliate by tightening credit, causing an economic downturn, but Jackson refused to back down. And the bank's charter expired in 1836, and it was eventually liquidated in 1841. So I guess let's look at the impact of Andrew Jackson's actions. And one of them is the Panic of 1837, of course. His lack of central bank contributed to lack of liquidity. And his actions also reinforced distrust of central banking, delaying the creation of the modern Federal Reserve until 1913. So could we be in a second bank war? It's very possible, I would say. And why wouldn't Trump campaign on this topic? Why didn't he campaign on ending the Fed? Well, I think he would have been too blatant. And the Fed and the people who control the Fed, these people and also the big corporations, and they're not just of this ethnicity or religion. They're very powerful bankers. They would have put a stop to it very easily. They would have cut the credit right away. So it's very difficult thing to do. Am I saying Donald Trump is going to succeed? It's possible, but it's going to be tough because the Federal Reserve has been more entrenched than the second bank of the United States. And a lot of people nowadays don't really know about banking. They don't know about the Constitution and the fact that central banking, really, a central bank is unconstitutional, as Andrew Jackson said. So what I'm trying to say here, yeah, Trump is telling the Fed, you need to help the U.S. economy. Yeah, I know they already cut rates a lot and they kept rates at zero from 2008 to like 2020, 2021. But that was really to help Wall Street. I bet you if the banks were in trouble right now and the stock market was a lot lower, the Fed would be cutting rates. They don't really care about the bottom 90%, the Federal Reserve. They're there to service the top 0.1%, maybe the top 1%. And you might say, well, but Trump has been financed by Wall Street. Well, there's the old saying, you keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. But we've seen recently, especially with Colombia, that there's a new acronym out there, which is it's rude, but it's pretty interesting. It's FAFO, F around and find out, right? Learn the hard way. So President Trump, I think, is not going to take any, I don't want to say the word, from Jay Powell, because he's got a mandate from the American people. to do whatever it takes to get the country going again, to get the economy going again. Am I saying it's going to succeed right away? No, I think we are in the beginning of a great crisis. I think we are in the winter. We're in the fourth turning. But yeah, I think we could be entering the second bank war. But the bank war could be, it could be something monumental actually, because it's for the control of the money or the currency of the country. And as Meyer Amschel Rothschild said once in the 19th century, give me control of a country's currency and I care not who makes the laws. And I think that's what is at stake here. And you might think, well, that won't be good. The bankers, they know how to run a currency and keep it sound. Well, look at the Federal Reserve's track record. Since 1913, the dollar's lost like 99% of its value versus gold or real money. From 1836 to 1913, the dollar was stable. It didn't lose its purchasing power. And what I mean by the people controlling the money is it's the free market, right? The people will decide what they want to use as money. Congress, the government, the federal government, is not supposed to implement legal tender laws. That was done in an emergency back during the Civil War. People should be able to use whatever they want. And what the Congress does is regulate the value of the coins in terms of their weights and denominations. That's all it is. It would be great if that would happen again, and we'll have to wait and see. So with that, let's quickly look at where the markets are this morning. It's 8:45 a.m. London time. So we've got spot gold at 27.63. We saw gold get hit hard earlier this week on Monday. It has rebounded though, and we are very near all-time highs in the spot price. Silver is still being kept below 31.90. I think that's the futures we're looking at there in the March futures. In the spot price, we're at 30.50 right now. It's up 7 cents. Yes, it has rebounded from below 30. On Monday, they smashed it down to below 30. So we're back up here above 30. What about the stock market? Well, the Dow futures is down 30. The NASDAQ rebounded. I think it regained half of its losses from the previous day. Right now it's up 106 points. That's the NASDAQ 100. The S&P 500 is up 10 points. So the stock market is still holding. What about the currencies? Well, the currencies are pretty steady here. The dollar, though, is down 0.25% versus the yen at 155.14. Crude oil is unchanged. High-grade copper is down slightly. And what about bond yields? Well, let's look at the 10-year yield. We're at 451 or 452, excuse me. It's down about 3 basis points. So the bond market's under control a little bit for now. What about the UK bond market, the gilts? The 2-year gilt yield is at 4.33. The 5-year at the same level. Yes, they have come off. So right now, the sell-off in bond markets have been kind of halted, and things are fairly steady for now, but I still believe we are in the long-term bear market for bonds. I think bonds are really bad investment because they're not really giving you enough return to compensate for the debasement of the currency. And if you believe that the debasement of the currency or inflation is only 2 or 3%, then I think you should look into the topic a little more deeply because, yeah, it's anything but being debased by 2 or 3%. It's a lot more. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.